borrowed 14.77 billion between 2013 to date. Between 2013 to 2016, we borrowed $3.7 billion. Then, when President Akufo-Addo took over, till 2016, he borrowed over 10 billion, about 11 billion.
A total of what Nigeria has borrowed?
Yes, 11 billion within that short space. That's about 4 or 3 times what President Mahama borrowed in its entirety. But what we used to do was that you establish what you call a sinking fund or an escrow fund. Put something there so that when it matures, you would get something. But what this government decided to do is that they will do refinancing. Refinancing means we borrow, say, 3 billion, pay 2 billion that's maturing, and use the 1 billion for budgetary support. Then you must ask yourself, where are those monies going to? That, for me, is critical.
We have been told time and again that much of the borrowing by this government goes to pay our debts. Now, I can't understand when you lay the figures bare that during your period you had done 3.7 billion, and that Akufo-Addo's regime has done in excess of 10 billion.
Yes.
Why is it that there's so much interest in our 3.7 billion that paying it we need about 3 times to service that debt?
But usually you don't even borrow to pay interest, because normally when you borrow to pay the principal, it's known as zero financing. So it's like refinancing. But that's what the interest. Because you borrow to do some project, it must pay for itself. So if you look at our borrowing, over 60% of the borrowing went into capital expenditure, critical infrastructure. If you look at President Akufo-Addo's borrowing, less than 50% went into capital expenditure. In fact, in 2019, when they borrowed most, 2.4 billion thereabout cedis was used to finance free SHS. So they're happy. You've paid parents' school fees. But the following year, you have to start paying the interest. The money is just not available. So it started catching up. So interest payment is moved from 10 billion when we're living. Now we are doing about 44 billion. Amortization is going through the roofs. And like Bright said, in 2019, when we exited the IMF program, we programmed to pay about 5 billion amortization. We ended up paying 11 billion. What that means is that the investors were not convinced. Because when you program to pay 5 billion and you end up paying 11 billion, then you must go to the reserves.